Bonus chapter. The becoming never ends. And I am sure of this, that he who began a good work in you will bring it to completion at the day of Jesus Christ. Philippians 1:6. There is a quiet strength in this verse that many men overlook. Paul does not speak with uncertainty or optimism. He speaks with conviction. He is sure, confident, anchored. He knows something about God that only experience can teach, that God does not abandon what he begins. He does not lose interest halfway through the process. He does not grow impatient with slow progress or frustrated with repeated failure. The same God who initiated the work in you is fully committed to completing it. This truth reshapes how a man understands his spiritual journey. It tells us that growth is not about reaching a finish line, but about remaining faithful on the path. Becoming a godly man is not a moment, it is a movement. It is not an achievement, it is a process. And that process does not end until the day we stand before Christ. A godly man learns to live with this awareness. The becoming never ends. One of the greatest dangers in spiritual life is believing that growth has an expiration date. Men often assume that maturity means arrival, that one day prayer will be effortless, temptation will fade, discipline will feel natural, and obedience will no longer require intention. But Scripture never promises that. What it promises is transformation through perseverance. The Christian life is not about being finished, it is about being faithful. This book was never written to create an image of a perfect man. It was written to call men into a lifelong pursuit of God. A godly man is not defined by flawlessness, but by faithfulness. He keeps showing up. He keeps surrendering. He keeps allowing God to shape him, even when the process is uncomfortable. Throughout the inner man, we confronted the unseen world, the thoughts, emotions, desires, and inner battles that shape who we truly are. We learned that no amount of outward discipline can compensate for inward neglect. The heart must be guarded, the mind must be renewed, the inner life must be surrendered. Growth there is often slow, hidden, and deeply personal, but it is foundational. A man cannot outgrow what he refuses to face within. In the outer man, we shifted our focus to what that inner work produces: habits, speech, relationships, stewardship, character. The outer life reveals the inner life over time. Growth here is visible, but it is never final. There is always another habit to refine, another area to submit, another way God calls us to live with greater integrity and intentionality. And in the godly man, we moved from correction to cultivation. We focused on spiritual habits that sustain a man over time: prayer, the word, service, humility, discernment, rest, discipleship. These are not seasonal practices. They are lifelong rhythms. A godly man does not master these disciplines and move on. He grows deeper in them. This is where many men misunderstand spiritual maturity. Maturity does not mean fewer struggles. It means greater awareness. It does not mean the absence of temptation. It means a quicker return to God. It does not mean perfection. It means pursuit. A godly man learns to distinguish between falling short and giving up. One is part of the journey. The other is surrendering the journey altogether. Looking back over my own life, I see this truth clearly. I see seasons of hunger and seasons of dryness, moments of clarity and moments of confusion, victories that strengthened my faith and failures that humbled my heart. I see how God used every season, especially the difficult ones, to shape something deeper in me. I think of the early mornings in the chapel during Bible college, when seeking God felt urgent and consuming. I think of the seasons in ministry where responsibility increased faster than maturity, forcing me to depend on God in new ways. I think of moments where pride whispered promises it could not keep, and humility brought me back to alignment. I think of times when God slowed me down because I refused to rest, and seasons when He called me to pour into others instead of building for myself. None of those moments were wasted. None of them disqualified me. God was working through all of them. This is why it is so important for a man to understand that spiritual growth is not linear. There are advances and setbacks, plateaus and breakthroughs, seasons of pruning and seasons of fruitfulness. The danger is not struggling. The danger is assuming that struggle means God has stopped working. Philippians 1:6 tells us the opposite. Struggle often means the work is still active. A godly man learns to stop asking, "Why am I not there yet?" and begins asking, "What is God forming in me now?" That shift changes everything. It replaces frustration with trust. It turns pressure into patience. It reframes delay as development. This verse also reminds us that spiritual growth is ultimately God's work, not ours. Yes, obedience matters, discipline matters, faithfulness matters. But we do not transform ourselves by sheer effort. We cooperate with the one who is transforming us. A godly man does not carry the burden of completion. He carries the responsibility of surrender. That realization brings freedom. It allows a man to be honest about where he is without losing hope for where he's going. It keeps him from pretending. It keeps him from hiding. It keeps him walking. There is also a sobering humility in knowing that the work will not be complete until Christ returns. That means there will always be room to grow, always something to learn, always another layer to surrender. The godly man embraces this, not with discouragement, but with expectation. God is still at work. That means tomorrow holds opportunity. One of the most damaging lies men believe is that failure cancels progress. It does not. Failure reveals areas that still need grace. The godly man does not excuse sin, but he also does not allow shame to dictate his identity. He repents quickly. He realigns intentionally. He keeps moving forward. When you step back and look at your own story, you will likely see the same pattern. God has been faithful through every season, especially the ones that didn't make sense at the time. The struggles shaped your character. The waiting refined your patience. The disappointments redirected your heart. You are not who you once were, even if you are not yet who you long to be. That is the tension of becoming. The godly man learns to live in that tension without quitting. He remains teachable. He remains humble. He remains hungry for God. He understands that spiritual life is not about arriving at a destination, but about walking with a faithful God. This chapter is not meant to close a book as much as it is meant to open a door. An invitation to continue the journey with intention, to stop measuring yourself by how far you think you should be and instead measure yourself by your willingness to keep pursuing God. The scriptures describe us not as finished monuments, but as living sacrifices. A statue is admired. A sacrifice is surrendered. A statue never changes. A sacrifice is continually offered. The godly man chooses the altar over the pedestal. He allows God to shape him daily, not occasionally. And so I want to leave you with a challenge, not one rooted in pressure, but in purpose. Take time to reflect honestly. Look back over your life and ask yourself where God has brought you from. Acknowledge the growth you can see, even if it feels incomplete. Then ask where He is still working. What habits need strengthening? What attitudes need surrendering? What areas of your life require fresh obedience? Finally, ask yourself what kind of man you long to become, not in terms of recognition, but in character. Not in titles, but in faithfulness. Write it down. Pray over it. Then take one intentional step this week toward that becoming. Not 10, not someday. 1. Do not despise small steps. Do not wait to feel ready. Do not quit because the process feels unfinished. The becoming never ends, and the God who began the work in you is faithful to complete it.